welcome to Mountaineer Rants. I'm Paul, this is Terry, and today we've got a question for you. What do the major programs Texas A&M, Notre Dame, and Nebraska have in common?
Well, I think they all went into games last week against teams that they thought they could easily win.
A lot of teams do that.
Well,
so what?
Texas A&M played Appalachia State. Notre Dame played
Texas
Marshall.
A&M lost to Appalachia State.
Notre Dame lost to Marshall.
Didn't they just give Ohio State all they could handle at Ohio State?
Yeah, they played a really good game against them. That's true. But then
Really?
they lost to Marshall at home at Notre Dame too.
How did that happen?
Yeah, well, Nebraska lost to Georgia Southern and lost their coach too.
Georgia Southern, and they fired their coach
They fired
for
the
that.
coach
So
for that.
we've got three major programs.
Lost to smaller schools, but what I can tell you something even worse than that. 4 FBS schools lost to FCS schools. FCS is the Football Championship Series, really small schools against major schools. And when I say that, it's a Holy Cross beat Buffalo, an FCS school beat an FBS school. Eastern Kentucky beat Bowling Green. Incarnate Word beat Nevada. And then the one that really got me is Weber State beat Utah State. Now, Utah State was the champion of the Mountain West Conference. 4 FCS schools beat FBS schools. Why do I bring that up? Well, we got an FCS school playing an FBS school in Morgantown.
Yes, that's why they play the game.
It is a very
to
good
find
point.
out. Well, here's the cautionary note. West Virginia plays Towson. Towson historically is not a very good team. Everybody says West Virginia is going to win. This is a potential for a trap game. You can't take a game lightly. Let's talk a little bit about it. First of all, we know that during the game, our cornerback Charles Woods will be out.
He's out.
We know our defensive lineman Jalen Thornton will be out. And I understand Aubrey Burks, our defensive back, is also out.
He's going to be out.
The good news is that Jordan White, number 53, will be available for the offensive line. He was having some problems. And our linebacker Tariq Austin Cave, number 18, he will be available.
Hasn't played yet this year, but he backs up Koba, and it'll be good. He'll get some action, I think.
Let's talk about Towson. Towson's a teacher's college. They were 4-7 last year, not very good. They had a lot of points scored against them. William and Mary put up 40. North Dakota State put up 35. San Diego State put up 48. They beat them pretty bad, and they lost 50 players last year. Their coach is in the last year of his contract, Rob Ambrose. Last year, they only averaged 19 points a game, 126 yards rushing, 190 yards passing, and they were last in CAA pass efficiency with a number that means nothing to me, but maybe you know. It's a 110.5.
I don't know, but I'm sure it's bad.
It's probably bad. CAA was better.
Yeah.
Their defense allowed 373 yards per game, 28.6 points per game, and they allowed a 41% conversion rate on third downs. They were not very good. Plus, they had a turnover rate that was plus -5. They gave it away more often than they took it, which is something West Virginia's got to worry about.
We got to get the ball away from people. We haven't done that this year.
But they've got a lot of new players, and they're led by a quarterback named a 6-year senior named Tyrell Pigrome. They call him Piggy.
Piggy, yeah.
Piggy's from Maryland, but he's what they call well-traveled. Piggy's been at Ole Miss, Western Kentucky. He's bounced around a lot. He's an older player. He is a run-pass option quarterback, and that's what we're vulnerable to.
Jalen Daniels just made us look terrible from Kansas.
Piggy has a completion rate of 57.6%. He's got 1,600 yards in the past. He had 9 touchdowns with 2 picks. He also ran for 337 yards and 4 touchdowns with a long of 29. He's a run-pass option quarterback. He can beat you with his feet. Now, he's got a backup. It's a redshirt freshman named Scott Smith. He's a gunslinger. He's more of a thrower, but he can also run. So West Virginia has got to concern themselves with the quarterback getting out of the pocket and gaining ground that way.
Absolutely.
They've got a senior wide receiver coming back from a knee injury. He caught 29 passes last year for 263 yards. Jabari Allen. And in 2018, he was over 700 yards in pass completions. They've got some up-and-coming receivers as well. Isaiah Perkins, who's got good speed, good hands, and a vertical threat in a kid named Kendall James. He caught 37 passes and for 557 yards and 4 touchdowns as a freshman. So even though they didn't have a great offense, they've got some receivers that can run and will catch the ball, and that goes right against our weakness.
Absolutely.
Now, their running backs include a sophomore named Devin Matthews. He rushed for 271 yards, not much, but they did have a pretty good running game in the past. Like I said, they've changed players. Matthews has lost weight, and now he's faster, and they expect him to be more than just a short yardage back. So watch for Devin Matthews. He's 5'9", little guy. Watch for him to get loose if we don't stop him. Now, their big back is a guy named Joaquin Banda, Bangda. He's 230 pounds. He's explosive. He's from Kent State, and they'll try to run. Now, the negative on that is they've got a problem with their offensive line. Yeah. They lost their left tackle, their left guard, and their right tackle to graduation. They're actually moving one of their defensive linemen over to the offensive line. And so
which we did with James Gamitter.
We did some of the same stuff. So they're going to have a knit new offensive line. At left tackle, they're big, though. At left tackle, they've got Josh Roberts. He's 6'7", 325, and he started at Lafayette last year. Also at left tackle, they have Dan Volpe. He's 6'6", 305. He's a freshman. They have a senior left guard named Alex Desire. He's 6'4", 310. They also have Cole Chapirko. He's 6'4", 305. He's their center, and he's what the line's built around. Julian Singh, S-I-N-G-H, is 6'3", 310 at right guard or right tackle. He plays both. Also at right tackle is Roman Warhart. He's 6'6", 330. And they've got a senior, Mason Chalowa. He's the one that moved from the defense over to the offensive line. He's 6'6", 310. So these are big players.
This is an FCS school, but that's FBS. That's frontline size. Okay, maybe I don't know what their talent and their ability is, but there's no doubt there's size enough there that can compete.
And they're loaded with players that are on our level. Some fans may think that you play a low-level school, that somehow they're 20 pounds lighter and 2 steps slower. They're not. The difference between the great and the good and the average is consistency, because these guys are big enough to do it. Their defensive line is pretty much the same as it was last year. It wasn't great. They've got a few guys that made a few sacks last year, but
they gave up a lot of yards and a lot of points last year.
Right, right. Their front seven is considered fast on the defensive line. And they think their back end, their secondary, is going to be pretty good too. So what they're going to try to do is get pressure on the quarterback, and they're looking for sacks. I won't run you through all the names, but I will tell you that they have a lot of high-level players. Their free safety, for example, is Robert Topps. He's a Kansas transfer. He had 20 tackles last year. The other safety is Ube Steed. He had 28 tackles last year. Jawan Burgess is a graduate from Indiana. He had 14 tackles last year, and he was a former USC commit.
So they got a lot of new players in there, don't they? And
they
so
do.
That defense is, you can't count on them giving up so many yards and points last year, and this defense is probably going to be completely different.
At the cornerback, they have Charles Peoples. He's the lone returning starter on the secondary. He had 30 tackles last year. Mackay Self is a transfer from Penn State at corner. So they've got high-level players at corner. They also have a couple other fellas backing that up that I don't know much about. They have a redshirt sophomore named Dorian Davis. He began at Western Carolina. He had 42 tackles and was named all-freshman team in the Southern Conference. He also played at Southern Illinois and played in 10 games, had 14 tackles. They also have a redshirt freshman named Sean Tucker. He's an East Carolina transfer. Tucker was a 3-star cornerback, and he had offers from Indiana, Cincinnati, Virginia, Wisconsin, and West
I'll
Virginia
say I recognize that
to
name.
play
I
cornerback.
thought he was one that we were on the trail trying to get to. So,
They have
so
to
we're not we're going to know some of these guys from recruiting because they are just from right up the road in Maryland too. But we'll see. They're not just bad players.
If you go through the list, you might see more 2-stars than 3-stars, and that's to be expected. But we also know the star system may not fairly rate some of these. And like I said, they're Kansas, West Virginia, Southern Cal, Penn State, and that's in their secondary. Their punter has to be replaced. His punter transferred to NC State. But they got themselves an Australian, not unlike us.
Everybody gets Australian punters
and
now.
they've got a place kicker that's back. Their regular place kicker is back. His long was 41 yards. He's 4 for 8 in his field goals. And then they've got Josh Culpet is probably their kickoff guy. Don't know how good or bad he is. We'll have to see.
They're coming in 2-0. They won their first game. I think they won by the team missing an extra point. They won 14-13, if I recall. And then their second game they won relatively easy. So they haven't lost yet. So right there, we're 0-2. They're 2-0.
They also have some speed. They've got a punt return guy that averages 7 yards per punt return and 22 yards per kickoff return, which is better than what we're doing. And he had a back injury that could cost him the early part of the season. We don't know whether he'll be back or not, Diego Hunter. And then they have a transfer from Virginia Union who's going to return kicks named Darren Williams. They also returned punts during the preseason. So they're in the last year of their coach's contract. They lost 50 players and brought in a brand new bunch. They've won 2 so far this year. People play these games. Statistics don't play these games.
They figure they got nothing to lose. They're going in here. They just saw us lose to Kansas at home in our home field. This is their chance to make a statement. I mean, 4 FBS teams lost to FCS. FCS teams, 4 of them last week made statements. They think they can maybe do that this week.
So what are our predictions? Well, it's easy to predict West Virginia will win the game. I've seen this West Virginia squad against Pitt and against Kansas. It's a good squad. It does some bad things. It's got to eliminate some things. It's got to get better in some areas. But it's a good squad, and I believe they were as good or better than the last 2 teams they played against.
Absolutely
I
agree.
certainly believe they're better than Towson. But again, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, Nebraska, they were all convinced that they were better than the people they were playing against, and it didn't happen. You've got to play it every play. Well, how do we win? By the way, I think you take the over in this game too, but I think West Virginia puts up a lot of points.
I think we do too.
How do you win? You got to avoid distractions. Distractions are the enemy. And if you're into stats, the stats now say this is the only game we're favored in the rest of the season. If you believe the stats will be 1 and whatever as the rest of the season, it'll be the worst season we've ever had since the 60s.
And this is just the next game, okay?
But if you believe the stats and you're distracted by the stats, stop that. Don't get distracted by the stats. Don't get distracted by standings. Well, West Virginia's going to be in last place in the 12th and in the Big 12. Don't get distracted by the standings. If you believe the clods who are predicting that this is a bad team, a bad coach, a bad season, and that everybody ought to be canned and replaced, you'll be distracted. Don't do that.
Just another distraction.
You've got to focus on the things what will help us win the game, what will help the university, what will help the program. Now, who do you think wants you to win? Well, we do.
We do. I do. The coaches.
Who do you think wants you to be successful?
I do.
We do. Who out there believes in the West Virginia team?
I do.
We do. And your coaches do, and a lot of Mountaineer fans do. So let's roll up our sleeves and let's go out and make a statement for Towson. And we'll be back afterwards to crow a little bit and tell the clods to get lost.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Thank you. That's not bad. I like